So far in this class, we have seen 3 well-designed databases, and we have learned lots of database terminology to assist us in designing a database. The textbook talks about 7 steps to properly design a database. If you complete these 7 steps, you can successfully design a database that has been normalized to third normal form. Let's take a look at each of these steps separately by beginning a database scenario looking at a collection of CDs. Let's take a look at our scenario. You are the owner of a music store. You need to set up a system to automate all of the daily business activities for the store. You sell CDs and sheet music. For each sale, you would like to record a unique transaction number and the date of the sale. You would also like to know which employee made the sale, each item being sold, the quantity of that item, the amount of each item, the form of payment, and the total amount of the purchase. For the employee, you need to know the name, address, and phone number so you can contact them if they get a bonus for a sale. For all of the items in the store, you need to know the type and name of the item, the artist or group or composer, the price of that item, and amount of that item currently in stock. So now let's take a look at the 7 database design steps. Step 1 in the database design method is called entities. In this step, you read the requirements, identify the entities involved, and name the entities. What I like to do during this step is to highlight in different colors the major ideas while reading the scenario. This helps me determine the entities to start with. In this scenario, the first 3 sentences give an overview of the database. The next 3 sentences, which are highlighted in blue, refer to transactions. The information highlighted in purple refers to the employee, and the information in orange is about items in the CD store. I have my 3 entities: transaction, employee, and item. This completes step 1. Let's see what needs to happen next. Step 2 is called PKs, or primary keys. In this step, I need to identify a unique primary key for each entity. For our transaction entity, I have chosen transaction ID. For the employee entity, I have chosen employee ID. And for the item entity, I've chosen item ID. That's it for step 2. Let's move on to step 3. Step 3 is called attributes because I need to identify the attributes for all entities. For this step, I like to underline the keywords I think would make good attributes. Then I list them in the proper table under the primary key according to my colored highlighting I defined in step 1. For the transaction entity, I have chosen date of sale, employee ID, quantity, item price, transaction type, and transaction price as the attributes. For the employee table, I have chosen employee name, employee address, and employee phone as the attributes. And for the item table, I have chosen item type, item name, artist, composer, price, on hand as the attributes. When choosing the attributes for the entities, you may have come up with different names, and that would be okay. It's important that you pick attribute names that make sense so that when you are working with this database later, when you're coding and asking questions about the data, the attributes make sense. Let's move on to step 4. In step 4, you have to identify the functional dependencies that exist among attributes. You completed an assignment on functional dependency during week 2. So if you need a refresher, rewatch that video or refer to your notes in your journal. When looking at the transaction table, all attributes are dependent except for the item price. The item price also has to do with the item and not the transaction. All items are dependent on in the employee table, and also all items are dependent in the item table. Our new table becomes what you see here. Let's take a look at step 5. For step 5, you take the information you gathered in step 4 and form the tables. Our tables are the transaction table, the employee table, and the item table. We are now ready for relationships and step 6. For step 6, you draw an ER diagram and identify the relationships between the tables by adding the foreign keys if they don't exist or labeling them. Use the business rules to help you know which part of the relationship line is the one side and which part of the relationship line should be the many side. Remember, there are 2 business rules for every relationship line drawn. Let's take a look at the relationship between the employee and transaction tables. For the business rule, it makes sense to say each employee can have many transactions and each transaction associated with only one employee. Pay close attention to the end of both sentences in the words I have highlighted in green. And I just circled it in red. This tells me which table should be the one side and which table should be the many side. In this case, transaction table should be the many side because as you see the word many before transaction, and the employee table should be the one side because you see the word one before the employee in my business rule here. Now see if you can look at the business rules for the relationship between transaction item table and determine which is the one side and which is the many side. If you said the transaction table is the many side and item table is the one side, you are correct. There's just one more step to go. Let's take a look at step 7. For step 7, you normalize the tables to third normal form and modify the database structure if necessary. Let's check each of our tables for first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. For the transaction table, all attributes are okay except for the total sell attribute, which is the calculated column and a violation of third normal form. So you will have to remove that attribute for it to be in third normal form. You can write code for calculations if you remember from the third normal form video. There are no normalization violations for the employee table or the item table. Therefore, our final tables become what you see here. Now that we have our final tables, let's review the 7 steps. Step 1 is for entities, step 2 is for primary keys, step 3 is for attributes, step 4 is for dependents, step 5 is for tables, step 6 is for relationships, and step 7 is for normalization. It seems like a long process, but most steps go pretty quickly the more you practice. Now try the comprehensive example assignment or assignment for chapter 2 on your own. Thanks for watching.